Hello, everyone. I think we can start. Hopefully you can hear me and you can see my screen, right? Okay. Yeah, so today we'll have a look on database application, how we can develop an database application. Like it's written here, this one will not be covered in the exam or the quiz. So this is only for your assignment too. So now you've got some hint, then in your second assignment, you have to develop an database application, okay? So first of all, an acknowledgement of the country. So I would like to acknowledge the traditional owners of Australia and recognize their continuing connection to land, water, and culture. I am currently on the land of the Buramatagal people and pay my respect to their elder, past, present, and emerging. I further acknowledge the traditional owners of the country on which you are on and pay respect to their elder, past, present, and future. So today's topic will be how to develop a database application using two programming languages. Okay, so using Java and Python. You have to choose one. You don't have to write the program in both of the languages. Between these two, Java and Python, you can choose either one that you like. Okay. We will provide you an skeleton, all the forms, everything that we want you to have a look. That's everything will be given. You will simply write the code to connect the data, connect with the database and how to get the data from database. Okay, so that is the only part that you have to do. So normally when we write an SQL statement in our PostgreSQL window, right? So that is interactive. Interactive simply means that I simply write the query, select everything from student, and I get the output straight away, right? So that's it, but it does not give us that opportunity to, let's say, we want to process the data before showing it to the user, right? And we want to do some sort of styling of the output that we want to do, okay? So front-end design sort of thing. So that's what we cannot do there. So that's why we will learn about non-interactive SQL. So that simply means that SQL statements that we have learned in this unit, we will include them in a host language. So host language simply means any language that can support SQL like C++, Java, Python, PHP, and many other languages are there that supports that. Okay. So it simply means that we will have, let's say, a Java program, and inside the Java program, we will write a SQL statement. Okay. So SQL statement will run onto the database. So we definitely have to make that connection first. So first we make a connection, then we send the query. Database system will send us the query output back, and then we will process that output. So now you can see that we are talking about two sides of the structure, right? So one would be client side, another one will be server side. Server side should be understandable where our database is. Okay, so PostgreSQL is. There we might have some stored procedure. What does that mean? We'll talk about today, no worries. And we already learned about triggers. So stored procedure triggers or the actual database is there. So that will be on the server side. In the client side, we might create all the forms, or we might write some code to connect with the database, how to show that data to the user. So all of those things we will write on the client side, right? So this is what I'm simply talking about. Think about a form. You are trying to book a ticket on airline ticket. Okay, so we simply fill up this form, right? And then say go. So this simply means that you are simply saying the where conditions, right? So select everything from, let's say, flight table where user is giving this choice that you have, right? Departure time, return time, all of the information that we are giving. So when we press on go, that simply means that we are actually running an SQL query on the background. Okay, so we are simply running an SQL query, and then that results comes to us. Okay, so if this type of filling a form, filling your bank checks, or any mobile application that we have nowadays. So everything that we are using, everything that have a database, so all of them does some sort of connection first, right? And then get the output and show that to us. So that's what we are going to learn today. So when we are going to talk about this application development, so definitely we will have some form, like how we are going to book a ticket, we need to fill up that form, right? So those sort of things are known as presentation service. So in the presentation service, we will display the form, whatever we want from the user. Then we will have an application service. So application service will interact with the DBMS. Right? So all the code to interact with the DBMS will be in here, application service. And this is actually our PostgreSQL system, right? So DBMS is our PostgreSQL, here is the data store. So this is what we have learned so far. These are the two things that we are going to learn. Presentation service, you don't need to worry about that. We will provide you that. Okay, so we'll only need to learn about this application service, how to connect and how to get the data. So we'll try to connect using a thing called API. If you're not familiar with API, that simply means application programming interface. So that one will help us to run our query, connect with the database, and that's it. So that's what we are going to learn today. Okay? We'll learn about an API for Java and another one for Python. So that's it. Here we'll create the form. Here we'll write the code to connect with the DBMS and get data from DBMS. Using API, we will send that to DBMS. DBMS will run that query and send the result back to us. If all of these things reside in one computer, okay, so let's say your DBMS is in your local host. In week 1 tutorial session, you have installed PostgreSQL in your local computer, right? So that simply means that everything was in your computer. You will create the form, you will write the code, and everything will be in a single computer. That architecture is known as one-tier architecture. Okay. Definitely, we can divide that. One example could be MS Access. If you are familiar with MS Access, so MS Access have some database capability. There we can store the data in the database and then create some applications on top of that, right? If we divide that architecture into multiple parts, like you do for PostgreSQL, right? So now we have given you that username, password, and everything to connect to the DBMS system that is in our school. Right? So you connect with that one. So that is a two-tier architecture. Now you can see that this presentation service, application service, everything that you have, you will write that in your machine, but you will connect with the server machine that we have in our university. Right? So there will be some communication between that using network. Okay. So if we divide it into this way, this one is known as two-tier architecture, simple client and server. We can divide it further. If we put this application service into another server machine, okay, so that one will be known as three-tiered architecture. So in the client machine, you will only create the forms. How to connect with the database, that should be same for all the client, right? So thinking about that, we can put that into a server machine as well. How to connect with the database, how to get the data, okay? So those sort of things. If we put that into a separate server, that architecture is known as three-tiered. So in here you have presentation server, in here you have application server, and last you will have the database server that we will have. Okay. So when we are going to create these applications, right? So we will use a term called host language. So host language is the main language that we are going to use, like Java or Python. Okay. So these SQL commands that we have written so far in PostgreSQL stream, like select something from student, that one we'll try to embed, or we'll try to add inside our Java program or Python program. The capability that SQL have is that it can refer to the host variable. What does host variable means? So if we have a variable declared in Java or Python, we can use that variable in our SQL statement as well. Okay, so simply think about in a program, we have something like this declared, integer user input equal to some function which takes the input from user. And then you are writing select everything from student where is equal to user input. Right, so this will be allowed. We will see later that we will be able to use. So this is a Java variable, right? So we have declared this variable as an integer. If user gives that value as a valid value there, we'll put it in here and then we'll show the result in our output screen, right? So this is what we can do. But before doing everything, we need to make sure that we connect with the right database. That should be understandable. To write or to execute this query, first we need to connect with the database successfully. If the connection is there, only then we can write or execute this query and get out. Right. So that is the thing that we are going to do. When we are doing this integration, like Java plus SQL or Python plus SQL, so this integration can happen in two ways. First one is the statement level. Okay, so statement level simply means that in the same statement, we will write SQL query. Okay, so we'll simply write the SQL query inside a Java file. Okay, so in a Java file, let's say there are 5 lines, 4 lines is Java, 1 line will be SQL. Okay, we'll simply write the SQL inside there. What does call label interface mean? So call label interface means we will not write that one inside that file, but we will use a special API, application programming interface, to call this SQL command. Okay, so we'll use that API there. We'll send the SQL as a parameter in a method. How do we send that parameter, right? So SQL commands will be sent as a parameter. And then it will go to the DBMS system, will run or execute your query and find the result from there. The APIs that are available nowadays, very common one is JDBC, that one is for Java. We also have ODBC, that one is for Oracle database. Okay, so today we are going to learn about JDBC, and for Python we'll learn one as well. So the main difference between statement level and call level is that in statement level, we will directly write the SQL query inside our program. In call level, we'll use some API and there we'll send the SQL query as an argument. Okay, so I'll show you all of these. Don't worry. So this is what we have to do. Okay, so this is what today's topic is: how to combine these two languages, SQL and Python or Java, with one another, and how to create an application. Okay, so very short introduction to Java and Python. So it's an object-oriented programming language. We already know, at least those of you who are familiar with Java already know that. So object-oriented programming simply means that there we have a concept of object. We structure everything using class, and from that class we create object. Inside that object, we can have attributes, we can have methods. So attribute simply means variables we can declare. We can define some methods inside there, right? So this is what a simple Java class looks like. So if we have a class called employee, there we can have these 3 are known as attributes, and these are known as methods. This one has a special name where I don't have any return type. That one is known as constructor, right? So this one is simply storing the name, age, and salary of an employee. Okay, and we have set age, set salary, and we can print all those 3 values. That's it. How to compile and run our Java program? If you are familiar with Java, then you already know that this is a 2-step process because this is a compiled language. First, we have to compile to see whether there is some error with our code. If no error is there, then only we can execute. Right? So once we compile, we get a .class file from our Java file. So normally when we write the Java code, the file extension is .java. We compile, we get .class file. Then we execute this class file and we get the output back. Right? On the other hand, Python is an interpreted language. So interpreted simply means that we don't need to compile. We can directly execute. Right? So we can directly interpret. Okay, so you can see this only 1-step process. We simply write Python, then hello.py, and we get the output. If there is some error, we'll see that when we're running our program. So that is the only difference. In Java, there is a 2-step process, but in Python, there is only 1-step process. So in Java, let's say we want to write this hello world, classic hello world problem. So this is what we have to do, right? So Java always start from the main method. So you can have as many classes as you want, but you need to have exactly one main method from where the program will start. So we have this main method in here. So first we compile using javac hello.java if you are using command line argument. Okay, so there you will simply type javac, then the file name, then you will run that one. Right. So in Java, everything is in the class. Once we compile, we get the bytecode, okay, and execution always starts from this main function that we have. Python, a little bit different. There is no main function. There is no such thing there, okay. So here we have indentation. So whatever is indentation level 0, that one will be run first. So this one is simply defining a method, and this one is actually the line that will be run. So print hello world. If we run python hello.py, this is simply calling this function that we have, the method, and then this one print out hello world. Okay. So that is a simple process. Either you have to, if you are using Java, you have to go through a two-step process. If you are in Python, then it's only a simple process. Okay, so whenever we are writing any Java function, let's say something can go wrong. A lot of things can go wrong, okay, especially when we are developing some database application. Many things would go wrong, and that's why we'll use try and catch block in here. Okay? So to handle all of those exceptions that might arise. So what sort of exception can arise? So let's say you are trying to interact with the database. So the connection could not be established due to many reasons. Let's say you have given a wrong password, wrong username, network connection is not there, or query is taking too much time. Okay, so timeout error could be there. Lots of error could be there. So that's why we will always use a try and a catch block. Inside the try, we will write everything that we want to do regarding the interaction with the database. Okay, if some error happens, that one will go to the catch block. Okay, so there we will handle all the exceptions that we are going to do. Another thing is there is finally, when you are talking about try catch, there is another block called finally. If we are not familiar with finally, that's fine. So finally, it does not matter which block you are coming from, either try or catch, it will always go to the finally block. Your program will always go to the finally block. Okay. So let's say in try block, you have 5 lines. In third line, you have some issue. Okay. So that one will go back to catch block, handle the error, but again, it will go to finally block again. Okay. So in finally block, we do all of the cleanups. So what sort of cleanup? Let's say you have a connection established in here with the database, but with some query, you have some issues. Okay. Query because of timeout, some issues is there. You are in catch block. So in finally, we have to release that connection. Okay. Especially if you are using our school or university server. Okay. So you always have to release or remove that connection. Otherwise, that connection will always be there, and that will create trouble. Okay. So in finally block, we will do all of these cleanups. Any sort of database connection we have that we want to release, we can release that one in finally block. Okay. So we'll talk about each of these blocks. And if you have anything to return from this method, you can definitely return. In Python, now you can see this is Java. This is simply Python. Okay. Almost same thing, right? So here we also have try, and instead of catch, we only have except. That is the only difference. Okay. And here we also have bracket in Java, but in Python, we don't have bracket, right? So it depends on the indentation that you are using. Other than that, everything is fine. Here we have try block, except block, and finally block. Depending on which section you are in, that's fine, but it will always go to the finally block to perform some cleanups. So how we develop the application in here? So like I said, we will learn about some APIs. So for Java, the API is JDBC. Okay. So Java database connectivity. Okay, so that's it. Java API that will be used JDBC to connect with the database system that supports SQL. That's what we are going to learn. So it supports all the features, querying and updating data, and for retrieving query result as well. Okay, so we can pass any query, we can update, perform some insert, update, delete operation as well. And we can retrieve some data using select, right? Select something, we can do that. Remember this 4-step. When we are trying to communicate with the database, these are the 4 steps that you must have to do. First, acquire a connection. Try to establish the connection, write the correct username, correct password, correct database name, correct host name. Okay. So put all of these things correctly. So first acquire a connection. Once that connection is established with the database, then create a statement object. So a statement is nothing but a class in Java. Okay. So that is the one that we will use to write our application. And then using that object of a statement, you can execute query. Okay. And finally, if there is some error there, you need to have a mechanism to handle those errors. That simply means that we need to have try and catch block there to handle all the issues that might arise. So once again, first acquire the connection, then create a statement object, then send the query that you want to run on your database. And finally, if there could be some issues with your code, some exceptions might occur, right? So that you need to handle. JDBC is very powerful in this sense that it can connect with any type of database. So inside JDBC, here we write the application, right? So JDBC has a thing called driver manager. So driver manager finds the correct driver for you, which one you are using. So we will definitely use PostgreSQL database, right? So this is the driver that one will be used. So any application that we write will use PostgreSQL driver, so that one will connect with PostgreSQL. So the benefit of JDBC is that you can connect with multiple databases at the same time from the same program. Okay, so you can connect with different databases from the same program. So let's say you are working in a very large company where some data is stored in an Oracle database and some data is stored in PostgreSQL database. That's fine. So using JDBC, you can connect with both of them at the same time from the same program. And there will be no issues there. Okay, so you can establish both the connections at the same time and then can run your query. So they are very generic JDBC functions that we have. It normally works for all the database system that we have. So the first step was connecting to a database, right? So how do we connect to a database? Again, since we are only talking about PostgreSQL, so that is the only syntax that I will talk about. So in PostgreSQL, this is the class that we will use is PG, that is for PostgreSQL, simple data source. That is the class name. Okay, we'll create an object of that class, PG simple data source. Once we have an object, we need to pass 4 things. First one is what is the host name, then what is your database name, what is your user ID, and what is the password. So if you remember to connect with the university server, you have these 4 information there, right? If you are using your local one that you have installed in your computer, then host will be localhost. DB, whatever the DB name that you have written, user ID and password will be your username and password that you have set up. Okay, so these 4 things you need to pass in here, and then you simply write source.get connection, and that's it. So if we send all of these 4 things perfectly, then this get connection will establish the connection with the DBMS system. Always remember that we have to close the connection when we are done, especially when you are working with the university server. Okay, so always remove that connection once you are done. Otherwise, that connection will still be there, right? And it will create trouble next time you try to connect. Someone is saying, is it same as PG Connect? Yes, it will be same as PG Connect, right? But this time we are connecting from Java, right? Using JDBC. Okay, so once we have the connection, let's assume everything is fine. The connection is perfectly fine. Okay, now we want to execute a query. How should we execute? So we'll use this class called statement. So there that was written that you need to create an statement object. So a statement is the class. So we'll create an object with statement using this connection. So this is the object, CONN, right? Someone is asking, do we always need to release resources? Yes, you need to. Okay. So especially when you are working with server, right? So a lot of other people might be using that server, right? So that's why you need to release that resource once you are done. Okay, so using this object connection, so using this connection, we are creating a statement object first. So statement in the object name connection dot create a statement. That one will create a statement object for you. And let's say we want to write an SQL query, something like select something. Okay, so this is the method from this statement class. So statement dot execute query. And this one in here, we can send that. So here we can see that we are passing this one as an argument, right? So as a parameter to this method, execute query. Now there is a distinction between two types of queries. One is select. What is the difference between select and let's say insert? So when we are writing select, we want something back, right? So when you write select, let's say name from a student, we want the name of all the students as a result back. But if we are writing something, let's say insert or update or delete, we don't want anything in return, right? Probably a true or false, whether that was successful or not, but that is not what we are going to show, right? So that's why there are two different methods. When we are writing select, at that time it will be execute query, and execute query returns something. So it will return a result to us. We'll see later. When we don't want to see any result as an output, okay, at that time we need to write execute update. Okay, so that is the method name. You can write insert, update, delete, anything as a parameter inside there. Okay. So execute update will be there to write this sort of DML statement, and execute query will use when we are expecting some output. Okay. So that is the difference. Just remember the difference when do you need to use which one. Although this one is saying update, but in here you can write insert, update, delete, everything. Okay. Finally, statement, that one we need to close as well. Okay, so it captures all of the resources that need to be released. So once you are done with the statement object, make sure that you are closing that one as well. Here I have shown you only one way, which is statement. There are two other ways, and the class is known as prepared statement and also callable statement. We'll talk about these two in the second part of this lecture. Okay, but for the time being, we'll simply use statement. Later, we'll see why we need prepared statement and callable statement. Okay, so here I am executing this query. Execute query, select something. This one is giving us a result back, right? Result set. Okay, so execute query, here we can pass any query that we want. That one will be stored in a result set. Then you simply run a loop, right? So as long as we have some data in rs, so rs is the object, so rs.next, as long as we have some data, we'll print it out. Okay. So here rs.get string name, name is your attribute, okay, in the database. So in student table, let's say we have student ID, student name is country, right? So name simply means the attribute name of your database, of your table that you have, okay? So if you have student ID, which is let's say integer, then you will use rs.getInt, then within bracket, let's say ID is your attribute name. So what is the attribute name that you want to see? That is what you will write in here. Okay. Again, once everything is done, you will simply close that object. Okay. In this result set, we have many options, like here we can see next, right? So we also have previous. So next moves to the next one, right? Previous moves back to the previous row. We can use absolute int num. So if num is equal to 5, so that simply means that it will move to the 5th row. Relative int num simply means currently where you are sitting, from there, how much forward or backward you want to go. So let's say you are currently printing 2nd row. and then you wrote relative 3. So second row plus 3 is that simply means that you will get the 5th row, right? So from where you are sitting, from there, in which row you want to go. So that is forward. We can go backward as well using simply negative value. So if I simply write -1 from, let's say, second position, we will get the result of the first position. Okay. So we can move around whichever data we need. If let's say we simply need the first and last row, we can directly get them using this method that we have, first and last. If we are dealing with null, there is special method called was null. Okay, so using that, we can check whether some data is null or not. Hopefully making sense. So step by step, first try to connect with the database, then execute the query, then get the result in result set, print out the result set, and close everything. Here I have only shown you one method like getString, but there is a list of methods that you can use for every data type. There is a method available there. Okay, so I'm showing this one for Java. So if you have a bit or Boolean, in here you will use get Boolean. Let's say you have varchar, right? So which one is very common? You will use getString method. If you have integer, you will use getInt. Okay, so these are the method name you will see. If you want to figure out the method name in Python, you can simply click on this link and there we'll see the method name as well. Okay. Yep, so that's about Java. So in Java, we have first established the connection. Then we create a statement object. Using that one, we are executing a query, then getting the result in the result set and printing out the result in any format that we want. Any question on this Java part before I move on to Python? Someone is asking, when can we get our marks for quiz 1? Hopefully after your semester break. During the semester, we'll try to finish the marking. Looks like no question. Let me move on. Okay, so we'll do the same thing for Python. So in Python, the API that we are going to use is known as db-API. Okay, and that one is used for many different databases as well. So Oracle, PostgreSQL, for many DBMS system, that one can be used when you are using Python. So in Python, the same thing we'll do, just the language is different, right? But the basic idea is same. Here we will also acquire a connection, create a cursor object. So instead of a statement, so in Java that was a statement, in here the class name is cursor. And then we'll execute the query. If some error happens, we need to handle. So those are the exact 4 steps that we have just seen. So this is the thing that we have to import in Python. How to install this one in your lab, in your tutorial. Your tutorial will show you, okay, where to find this one and how to install everything. So like what we have done in Java, we'll have a try block. Inside there, we'll first try to connect. Right? So here we can see using this one, .connect. Inside there, we are sending the same 4 thing, right? So first one is the database, username, password, and the host. So if everything is correct there, then it will connect for you, nothing else. Then we will try to create an object of this cursor. Okay, so connection.cursor. Using this cursor, we will create a cursor, and using that connect cursor object, we will be able to execute any query that we have. Okay, so let's say this is the query I have. If I simply try to execute, this one will give me the result back. Okay, so same thing. Once we have the result, in Python, the result goes to result. In Java, that was result set, the name, right? But in here, the result goes to the result, that is the name, where it automatically saves the result. You can look through the result. Result 0 means the first attribute that you have. Okay, so if you have SID as the first attribute, result 0 simply means that you will print out all the student IDs only. If you want to print out everything, then you can get, let's say, result 1, result 2. You can write all of the things that you have there. Like I said, once you are done with everything, try to close. Okay. In except block, if there is some exception, you can print out some error message to see what sort of exceptions are there. Okay. In Python, when we are executing this one, so we are writing cars.execute, right? So there we can use many different methods. One is definitely execute that I have just shown you. There you can simply pass the SQL. If there is some parameter for your query, you can send that one as well. Okay, so let's say I am sending this comp 9120 as a parameter in here. So that's what we can do. We can write an SQL, and after comma, we can put that parameter list as well, if we have some parameter for that SQL. Sometimes it is necessary to write or execute the same query multiple times. Can anyone think of any query that we might need to run multiple times, but with different parameter? Same sort of query, but the parameter list is simply different. Which sort of query might need that? Any example? Everyone is very quiet. That's why I'm asking you whether you are still alive or not. Someone is saying select all. Select all will give you everything back as a result, but you are not executing the same query multiple times, right? You will execute that query only once. Yep. Someone is saying inserting multiple students record. Yes, any insert that could be there. Yeah, so you want to insert 10 student record. So the query is same, right? Only the parameter is different. Student records are different, right? So that's what you can do. You can write execute many. The same query will run multiple times with different parameters. For first student, this will be the parameter. For second student, parameter will be different, right? So that's what we can do. We can execute the same query, insert into student values something. That's what we can do. Updating multiple attributes. Yep, that's what we can do. So once we have that result, once we execute, right? So once we execute, then we can fetch the result. Okay. So we can fetch the result one by one. If we simply write fetch one, so that one will just give me the next result. So in which row, let's say you are in row number 10 and you write fetch one, that simply means it will give you row number 11 back. If you want to get more than one row at the same time, you can use fetch many, and then you can pass the size in here. So if I write fetch many, then 5, that simply means that you will see 5 results in here. Okay. Fetch all, that one will give you all the rows that you have. And finally, we are familiar with close, that one will close all of those things that we have. Okay. There are other methods as well, but these are the commonly used methods. In here, you will find those list of methods as well. But probably these are the only ones that you will need in here. That's it. Now we can see that the same thing we are doing in both the cases, right? First, acquiring the connection, then creating an object of either a statement or cursor, and then executing, and finally printing out that one. If some erroneous situation happens, so we are familiar that we can write an except block, right? But there is an sort of warning for us, never write something like this, where I'm writing print E. Why? So this one will print the internal error message that we have. Okay, so once we write or execute a query, let's say which is erroneous query, okay, so we will see that one as an output. Okay, so what do I mean by that? Is in here, let's say I am writing a query which is wrong. Okay. So first, yep, I have data student table. Let's say this is a mistake that I made. I also have student table as well. Okay, so this is the query I'm writing, which is wrong, right? So looking at the output, can you guess what problem could be there if we show this output to the user? let me give you some more hint. Let's say I want to see the SID and name. Someone is saying, do you have suggestion between Python or Java? No. No suggestion. Whatever you feel comfortable with writing code, that's fine. You can use that one. Okay. We will provide you skeleton for both of them. Okay. We will provide you a skeleton for Python, for Java. So whatever you choose, you can use that one. Yep. Someone answered this one. That's saying user will see the database table column name. Yep. Yes, this will expose the internal DB structure to the user and potentially malicious one. Yeah. So that's right. So if we print that error message, so this is the error message someone will see, right? That relation student does not exist, select SID. So you will see that this is the query that we have run there. So he might get some idea regarding the attribute, regarding the table, right? So a huge query there. You have all the attributes. Okay, so everything could be there. So that's why it is not recommended to print this error message. Okay, maybe we should cover to code number for debug from the client side. Yep, everything we can do. So if you print something like this, so this is what the output could look like if something goes wrong in your web page, let's say. Okay. So in here we can, although we have no idea about their database, but we can have some idea that there is a table called xcard_product, right? There are some attributes like category ID, xcard_product.for_sale, right? So we can have some idea. Like someone said, if someone is trying to do something malicious in your database, they can get some information from here. Okay. So from here, we have some idea that there are order ID in our table, right? In which table we might get that sort of information as well. So don't print this error message that is coming up from the internal. Print something which is meaningful to you, okay? And so that you can understand. Someone is asking, what are differences between these two print, I'm guessing. So this one will print the internal error message that we have if we are having some issue with the SQL query, right? So that error message will be printed in here. Okay, so in that case, what can we do? We can print some message. We can print the SQL state, like sometimes we see that find not found error number 400 or error number 500, right? So that is what we normally see, that some code is there which gives some indication, okay, what is the error. In SQL, there are some values, okay? Let's say this one is happening there. So we can simply print out these SQL state. So if I simply print out get SQL state, okay, e.get SQL state, then we will simply see this one, 23512, if something like this happens. Okay, so this one is saying the check constraint cannot be added because the table contains rows that do not satisfy the constraint definition. So let's say I'm trying to insert a check constraint there, but we still have some data there, so you cannot enforce that one. Okay, so that is this state that we have. Okay. Let's say this is the state, the insert or update value of a foreign key is invalid, right? So we are trying to insert something which does not exist in the parent table. So we can simply get that number 23503, and from there we can understand, okay, this is the mistake that we have made. So you can print the SQL state, you can print the error code. Okay, so any sort of error that has occurred, that one will print out, printed code there. Okay. In exception, if we want, we can catch subcategory of these exceptions as well. So this one will catch all the exceptions, right? So all the SQL exceptions that we have. But if you want to catch specific ones like timeout exception, integrity constraint violent exceptions, that's what you can do as well using the subclasses of this SQL exception. Okay. So we can specifically write SQL timeout exception, SQL integrity constraint violation exception, and we can handle them. There are some warning classes as well. So difference between warning and exception is that when some warning comes up, your program will still run, right? So program will not stop. It will simply say there is a warning, but it will work. Okay, but when we have an exception, program will stop working. So just looking into this piece of code, what could go wrong? So many things could go wrong. Let's say in here, we could have a failed connection due to the server is not running or the network connection is not there. Okay, many things could go wrong. When I'm trying to insert or trying to execute a query, many things could go wrong there as well. Query could time out because of the network delay. Primary key violation could happen. Foreign key violation could happen when we are trying to insert, right? So many things could go wrong. So all of these we can handle using this try and catch block that we have, okay? So like I said, we'll first create the connection, which is in open connection. Then we'll create an object of this statement. Then we will execute this query, okay? If something goes wrong, let's say you are trying to catch specific exceptions like SQL integrity constraint violation exception. You can say violated and constraint, you can print out the error message. Timeout exception, you can print out, right? Or if you can't think of any other specific one, you can use the parent one, SQL exception, and there you can say any other problem that has happened. Okay. Always remember that there needs to be a finally block, there will close, okay? Don't put this close inside try. Why? Anyone think of any reason? Let's say I'm closing in here, connection.close. Why that is not a good idea? Can anyone figure that one out? If I write something dot close in here, connection dot close. Someone is saying, we'll close the connection before you're finished. No, I've already finished writing this SQL query. Might need to use connection in the final block. No, in the final block, we don't write any query or we don't do anything, right? So let's assume that in try block will be finished. But still, why writing close is a bad idea in here. Yep, someone is saying if the exception happens, then the execution steps and it will never close. Yes, yep. If there is an exception, so in this line, if there is an exception, right, the program will go to the catch block. But you have close in here, right? So this line will never execute. That simply means that this connection will never close. Hopefully that part is making sense. So that's what I said in finally, it does not depend on whether you are coming from try or catch. In any block you are coming from, it will always go to the final block. So it is always better to put this one in connection. Okay, so anything that you want to close, put everything inside this finally block, okay, so that you are sure that everything will be closed. Java will force you to check first whether there is a connection. Okay, so Java, if you don't write this try block, Java will force you need to have a try and catch if you are trying to close connection. Okay, so that simply means that simply write a try block, because when it is going to close the connection, there might be some issue as well. When we established the connection, the network was there to perform all the operations. After some time, the connection is lost. Right? So if you are trying to close, since the connection is not there, there might be some issues as well. Okay, so that's why Java will force you to use a try and catch block when you are trying to close the connections. Okay. So this is what the whole thing will look like. In Python, same thing. Python will have warning and error. Okay. Same thing, warning, those will be warning, but your program will still run. Error, there are exceptions, your program will stop running from there. In here, we also have PG error, PG code, like I have just shown you for Java, some number, that number represents something, right? So in Python, we also have those. PG error, if there is some error, you can simply print out the error number, okay, or PG code that you have. So this is what it looks like. You try to connect, okay? In Here in except, you can print the error or the code that you have. Okay. This PG error, it normally prints out the error message returned by backend. So again, this is a very bad idea to print out the error message, because it prints out the message which actually is from the DBMS system that we have. Okay, so you can print out simply code and looking at the code, or you can print out some message which is meaningful to you, okay, to figure out the error. Yeah, these are the classes available inside error, interface error, database error, okay, and some other errors are there. Someone is asking, but it is the backend not show to user. Yep. So this is the backend, right? So in the backend, you have everything stored in the student table. That's what you don't want to show to the user, how your data are stored. So if the user sees this result, right, he might get some information how your table looks like. Someone, let's say a hacker, who is trying to hack your system, they can hack your system from this knowledge, right? Okay, so we'll take a break, but before taking the break, I will show you whatever I have just told you that works. Let me show you. Hopefully you can see my Java screen here as well. Let me first run, whether it runs correctly or not. So first, let me show you the table, which is in here. So I have a table in the DBMS system where I have a student ID, name, password, and address. So I have created a simple Java program that can show that information to me. So this is that one you can see, right? So exact same table I can see from a Java program. So what do we have to do? First, let's go to the main method. In here, I simply created a JDBC client, okay? And using that client, I'm calling connect to the database and list the student, these two methods. Okay. Connect to database, let's go there. So connect to database should make sense now, right? So these are the exact same lines that we have just seen. PG simple data source, first create an object, then provide these 4 things, and then get the connection. Right? So I have set these things, these 4 values. So here you can see my password for localhost, right? So that is what will happen to you as well. So when you submit your assignment, so that we can run your assignment, okay, so you need to give us your username and password. So make sure that is not some password that you want us not to see. Okay, so let's say you have a password, I hate my lecturer. Probably you don't want me to see that one. So you need to change that one, give a generic password, submit that one so that we can see. You definitely can change that password later. Right. Yep, so just warning there that we will be able to see your password. You need to submit the password to us. Okay. Okay, so this is the connection bit. Hopefully making sense. Exactly the thing that we have just seen. So pass these 4 things, and then if there is some exception, print out the exception. Then I had a list student. Forget about this green part. I will talk about that in the second part. So this is what we have seen. Right? So statement, create an object of the statement, and then execute the query. Select everything from student. This part is just for formatting so that it looks nice. Okay. So I'm getting the student ID, name, password, and address. So these are my attribute name. Okay, not the thing that I'm printing in here. These are in here. These are my actual attribute name. If I go in here in my table, you can see STUDID. So STUDID. So that is the attribute name. Okay. So that simply means that we are printing the value of those attributes in here. Okay. So this is list to student. I am doing everything, then closing the connection that I have. And in final block, I will close the connection that we have. Like I've shown you, if I run this one, then this one works. Let me show you the Python one as well. I tried to match these two as much as I can. Just give me a second to open this one. So this is the Python one. Same thing. We are starting from here. Okay. So I have a method called connect to database and list student. connect to database, the same thing that we have just seen. Okay, so connect with all of these 4 things provided, then return true or false depending on your connection. Then list the student, first create a cursor instead of a statement object, right? Then execute and then fetch one by one. So I'm fetching first one. If there is nothing there, I'll say no entries found. Otherwise, I'll print out these 2. So like someone is asking that which one we should use, you can use either one. You can see the exact code side by side, right? So I try to match every line on Python and Java so that you can see that they are actually same thing, just depending on the language, the syntax will be different, right? So connect to database, pass these 4 things, and then write any error message that comes up, list student, create a cursor object here, create a statement object, then execute, here also execute the query, then print out in whichever format you want, right? So that's what I'm doing. Finally, in the main, I have client, connect to database, list the student, and do everything. Hopefully this one will work as well. Yep. This one works, so we can see the same result from Java and Python. Yeah, so depends on you which one you want to choose. That's fine. Okay, we'll provide you a skeleton for both of them. Okay, we'll talk about the security issues in the second part. Let's take a break of 5 minutes, then we'll come back and talk about some security issues. Okay, so we'll be back in 7:07. Okay. Right now it's 7:02. We'll be back in 7:07. Okay, so I'm back. Hopefully everyone is back too. Any question so far what we have seen? So what we have seen, that's it mainly. Okay, but there are some security concerns. So that's why we will simply change a statement to something else. Okay. But other than that, we have already learned how to develop an application. Any question? No question. Excellent. Okay. Okay, so first let me show you what is the thing that can go wrong. I have created a small application just to show you. So I have created this small form just to show you what could go wrong. Okay, so in here, internally, I have the connection and everything. Okay, so if I put an student ID, correct student ID, and submit, that one will show me the student's information. Okay. So if I put, let's say 1, 2, 3, it does not show anything because there is no such student. What was the student ID? Let's say 101. Yep. So if I write 101, it shows me 101's information. Right. So simple form, any information that I want to see, 105 it exists, then it simply shows me that is students information. What could go wrong in this form? So definitely the intention was when we created this form that one student will be able to see only, let's say, their information. Okay, so they will insert their username, password, click on submit. If everything is fine, then they will see their information only. Right. But if someone writes something like this, or 1 equal to 1, and then click submit, now I can see all the information from this table. Right. First question someone might think, why someone would write or 1 equal to 1? Yep. So that was the malicious intention they had. Okay. So they had some bad intention. They want to have a look. What does your table looks like, or the data in your table looks like? Okay. So why this one is showing all the information? So think about what this query is. So I have a query internally, right? So where I was sending, where is student ID equal to whatever ID I was sending. But now I'm sending or 1 equal to 1. So think about the query. What do I have in the query now? Is in the where part, it has where SID equal to nothing, because I am sending nothing, or 1 equal to 1. Since 1 equal to 1 is always true, the where condition is always true, right? So I have SID equal to 101, let's say, or 1 equal to 1. So even if I don't have, let's say, 101 in my database, but 1 equal to 1 is always true, since this is an OR statement, then this one is true for all the rows, and that's why this one is showing me all the result, right? So this sort of security concern there when we are developing our application. Okay. So especially the one that I have just shown you, this one is known as SQL injection. Okay. So this one is known as SQL injection. This is the one that I was talking about, is that we can create a form where I take the username and password. So someone enters their username, John, their password. Okay. Internally, this is what the query, or sorry, the code looks like. So here I have select everything from student, where name equal to the name that your user going to give, and pass equal to the password that they are going to give us, right? So once we get John and my password, this query is actually changed to this one. So this is the actual query that is running in our database, right? Select everything from student, where name equal to John and password equal to this password. So only one student's information will be there. But now, like I have just shown you, if I write or 1 equal to 1, then this is the query that is there. So name is equal to nothing, or 1 equal to 1, or password equal to nothing, and sorry, or 1 equal to 1. So this part is always true, right? Because 1 is equal to 1, that is always true, because of where this part is true, this part is true, and will be true. So everything will be true. So we'll be able to see all the students' information. And that's what I've just shown you, that yes, it is possible to do that if we are not careful. Okay. So in that code, I had no security. Okay, I intentionally removed everything so that I can show you that this sort of error can happen. And this thing is known as SQL injection. We can inject some SQL. Okay, and interesting thing is someone might run some SQL query as well in there. So we have some way to run some SQL query. Let's say delete everything from a student. We can even write that one in here in these boxes. Okay, if we're not careful. So in here, there will be a query, delete everything from a student, and then this query will run. Okay, so they might remove everything from your table as well if you are not careful. So this is the problem with the statement. Okay, so statement class, we are concatenating all of these things. That's why that problem occur. How to limit these risks? Few non-technical things, or few just carefully written code, like don't expose the internal, like I have shown you, don't show anyone your attribute name, your table name. Okay, when you are saving the password, use some hash function there. The application that I was using here, you can see the password of every user, right? So this simple text. So don't store password as a text. Use some hashing method there. So there are lots of encoding method available, like one is MD5, especially in PHP. Okay, so there are lots of hash methods there you can use. Okay, but when we are especially writing the code, we need to be careful that we need to use some other classes called prepared statement in Java, not a statement. A statement has this issue because in a statement you concatenate everything. And in Python, it could be an anonymous or a named parameter that we have to use. Okay, so we'll discuss about all of these things. So in Java, only change that we are going to make, that instead of using the statement class, we will use prepared statement class. Okay, and in Python, we'll use anonymous or named parameter. How? Let's have a look. So same thing, prepared statement. When we have a prepared statement in there, inside there, we will write an SQL query. Only difference is that now you can see these what symbols in there, right? Instead of putting that value directly. So just let me go back so that you can understand. So here you can see that I am directly putting that value that I'm getting from the user, right? So uname, I'm putting that one and performing some concatenation. Okay. In here, what do we have? We have some what symbol. So these what symbols we will send later. Okay. So we will write something like, let's say statement.set float 1, amount. What does that mean? This 1 means the first what symbol that you have. Okay, 1 is not a value. 1 denotes the first what symbol that you have in your SQL query. 2 denotes the second what symbol that you have. Okay, so now you can see that order is important, and based on that order, it will put all of these things. So let's say in a method, I have this amount and account number. So now you can see that it will be a float type of data. It will be an int type of data. So he will do all of this checking. Still, if you want to perform some other check, you can definitely do. You can write some if else statement in there to check whether everything is fine or not, right? But we normally use these methods, which will make sure that this is a float, amount, int, account number must be an int. Anything other than that, this one will automatically complain, right? And then finally, we'll execute the query like we execute. Okay. So the only difference is that in the prepared statement, we are now writing the SQL query. Whenever we are getting something from user, those will be replaced with what symbol, and then we'll set all of them later. Okay. And like how we executed that query, we'll execute the query in the same way. Okay. More flexible, but it's secured because we are sending that information later. There we can make all the checks that we want. Okay. As a rule, always use this one, prefer to that one. Okay. Someone is saying, so the first word will be 1 or amount? Amount. So this one is saying in first word, put the amount. This one is saying in the second word symbol, put the account number. Hopefully that is making sense. Okay. Yep, so this is what I was trying to explain, that when we are using statement, right? So in a statement, we concatenate everything, student ID, password. Okay, so if someone writes or 1 equal to 1, like I have shown you, then the whole query becomes like this. But in prepared statement, we'll now use this what symbol, and we'll pass this value later when we want to do that. Okay, sorry. So prepared statement equal to con.prepare statement. There is a simple difference here. It is the method name is prepare statement and the class name is prepared statement. Okay, just look out for that one. When you are writing the class name, that class name is known as prepared statement, but inside there the method name is prepare statement. So in here you can write any SQL queries, anything that you want to insert from user or later, you can do that using this what sign. So this one is saying in the first what sign, write student ID, in the second what sign, because there is a 2 there, return, write the password. Everything else is same as before. Python, same thing. Don't do any concatenation, string concatenation. Okay, that one will create trouble. So because in concatenation, if we insert integer, string does not matter, it will concatenate everything, thinking that everything is in string, right? So in Python, how will we do that? So in Python, you can have a variable and you will write something like SID equal to %, okay? And this is % is what will be the value there, that will be student ID you can write, okay? We can write some named parameter. So this parameter name is SID, and later we can say that SID is equal to this stdid. Okay, so that's what we can do in Python. This is anonymous. There is no name of this parameter, right? But in here, if you want, within bracket, you can provide a name, and later you can say that SID will be student ID. There's the amount equal to this amount, course ID equal to that course ID. So the main thing is don't do any concatenation, otherwise your system might be hackable. Okay, someone might do something wrong. The same example that I have shown you there, I have used a prepared statement just to show you how this one will work. So this is the prepared statement that we have. I need to run this one. Fine. That one will come later. Yep. So here you can see that I am sending one student ID only. So 1 equal to 101. Okay, so that is the simple difference, is that now I have some what symbol. There I am sending that parameter. Okay. Someone is asking, will the tutorials be divided between Python and Java? Yep. So in your tutorial, there you will see a skeleton for Java and Python. Okay, whatever you want to work on, you can work on, and your tutor will help you. Okay, with whichever you choose. So we'll provide you both the tutorial sheet for today. One is for Python, and another one is for Java. Okay. Stored procedure. What does a stored procedure means? So the methods that I have created, let's say here I have a list student method, right? So this method is in the client machine. Can someone use that method? No, because this is in the one client's machine. Someone has developed that one. But if we create an method and put that into the DBMS system, think about something different I'm talking about. So in this DBMS system, like how we have a table, because this table is in here, everyone can get access to this table, right? So think about if we can create a method or a procedure or a function in here, right? We can store that one. Then every client can make use of that function. So that is what a stored procedure is. Okay, I'll show you creating a stored procedure, how we can create. So that's what we are going to do. We are going to create a procedure and we are going to store that one in the DBMS system where everyone has access to. Okay. First, think about the benefits and disadvantages there. Benefit is definitely additional abstract layer. Someone does not need to know your internal structure of the table, right? So let's say they want to see student information, you will have a function there, let's say view student, someone who is developing the application, right? They will simply call that function view student, and it will show all the student. View student within bracket, let's say you are taking a parameter, and then it will show all the student information where the student ID equal to something. Right? So those sort of abstract layer could be there. You don't need to share your internal architecture with everyone. Okay, it will reduce the data transfer as well because we have all of those stored. Everything is calculated there. But the problem could be, what if we switch the DBMS system? Like we have seen that different DBMS system could have different syntax, right? At that time, you might have to rewrite all of those. So what is the thing that I'm talking about is that this is what we have seen, that when I'm calling a method called P, right? So this P is in my machine. That's what I have. And this is here where my DBMS system is. If somehow we can store that one in the DBMS system, so this is the DBMS server, right? So there we can store the process or the procedure, right? From here, I simply call that procedure, right? So this one will protect from going to the database. Everything you need to do using this procedure. So no one needs to know the database structure, okay? So we have to create this process, and we'll simply, from the front end, someone will simply call this procedure. We can have some in and out arguments. Simply means what is the in parameter. In parameter means what will be the parameter list for this method and what is the expected output, right? So every method that we create, that will have a return type, you know. So that is the out argument. In argument is the parameter list that we will have. Yep. So all the major database system, they have this capability to define any method or any function inside their DBMS system. So the PostgreSQL we can run, but the syntax differ. Okay. So that's what I said. If you change database, then you have to rewrite all of those again because the syntax is different. So how do we create a procedure? Like in the DBMS system, everything we want to create, we write create. Right? So that's what we'll do. So like create table, we'll this time write create procedure. So create procedure, then the name of the procedure, any parameter that you want to take from user, any local variable you want to declare, you can declare that one, and then the code, whatever you want to do. In here, like I said, that it could be in different modes: in mode, out mode, in out mode. So when do we need to use in mode only? Think about select, insert, update, everything. When do you need in mode? For which type of SQL query? Someone is saying ensure you do not make any mistake. No. In argument to the procedure, the method that you are calling, you are simply sending some argument there, right? For which sort of SQL queries you need to send the arguments only, and you are expecting nothing back. Okay, looks like people are confused. Think about insert query. Right? So insert, again, you simply need to provide the student record, one student record to insert, right? So that's when you can work on in mode. Out mode. When do you need out mode? Let's say when you are running select something from student, or select everything from student, right? You are not inserting anything as a parameter, but you are expecting output, right? So that one could be in out mode. In out mode, you will provide some input and you are expecting some output. Where can that happen? Think about an select statement where you have some where condition, right? So select something from student where SID equal to something. So where SID equal to what, that one you are going to get, right? Going to input, and that student's information you will go get as an output. So that one is known as in and out. Hopefully that part is making sense. So again, in simply we can think about insert, out, let's say select everything with no condition. Okay. In and out, select something from, and there is a where condition, where SID equal to something, that's what you are going to input. Right? So if you input this one and get a result back, so that one is in in and out mode at the same time. So at that time we will use in and out. So in a stored procedure, you can write anything, like you can declare variable, you can write any loops, you can write if then else conditions as well. So that one will be helpful. So this is how a stored procedure in PostgreSQL looks like. Have a look first, and then we will try to have a discussion. What is it that you have in here? Should make some sense what this method is doing. So here we have create function or create procedure, okay, then the name. Then I have two parameters. First one is student ID and unit of study code. So this one I'll take as a parameter and I'll return a character. So this one is saying returns character. Okay, then this create function as, okay, then this is like the bracket, opening bracket and closing bracket, this symbol that we have. Okay. So this one simply means that you are starting to write this procedure logic, and this is the end of that one. And after end, we write language PLP GSQL. Okay. Inside there, if you need to declare some variables, you do that inside declare. First you write declare, there you declare the variables that you need. Then you inside begin and end, you write your code. Okay. So there you can write the SQL query. Select sum of marks into marks. In here you have the marks, sum of marks, and then I'm simply checking. Okay. If and if, again you can see that there is no bracket, so that's why I have to write this. If and if, here is the end of that if. Okay, that's it, what you can do. Yep, someone is saying what does the $sign mean? So again, this is like the opening bracket and closing bracket. Okay, so this simply means that I am starting this method definition. So since we don't have any bracket in here, so that's why these signs are used. Okay. I'll show you another one. So if you are using those mode, someone is asking, what is the benefit of doing this in DB rather than in the backend server? Yep. So if you do that in the DB, then other user can have access to that one as well. Right. So like you have stored the table, you now have these functions. So anyone can have access to this one, whoever has access to your database. Like I've shown you before that we can write in or out. Okay, so here you can see the same method, only changes this in and out. Okay, so in here we can see that in student ID, in US, this will be inputted, and this out result, which will be of type character. Okay. So these two user will input, and this one will be the output in result, which will be of type character. Okay. So same thing I performed, and then I simply wrote result equal to grade, because result is the variable that will be in the output. Okay. So this is how we can write a function in there. Okay. I have a function. Let me show you. Where is that one gone? Someone is asking, what does $signs mean? So those simply means that that is the starting and finishing of that one. Okay, so this one simply means that we are simply starting from here, and this is the end. That's what it means. Okay, so I've created a function. Okay, create or replace function, then this is the name, return something, a cursor. Okay, I have nothing but select star from student. So select everything from student. Okay. If I run this one, a function has been created like a table. If I go here and in functions, now you can see that that one has been created, list student. Okay. So this is the one that I have created, list student. So like how we see the tables, you will see the list of functions in here as well. Okay. So now I have this function. Now how do I call that one, right? So that's what we need to learn. How do we call that one from Java or Python? So that time we need to call, you need to use callable statement. Okay. So callable statement in the class is the class that we'll be using. That is a subclass of statement. Okay. So callable statement, prepare the call, then call read student. So this read student is a stored procedure, which is stored in our database. Okay. So in here, we are simply writing call this procedure. You can understand this is the parameter, the input parameter, and this is the output that we'll get in return. Right. So one simply means this first word symbol will be of type character. We can ensure the return type. Then we can say that this one, 2 means this second word symbol, right? This one. So this one will be 101, and the third one will be comp 9120. So this one will be comp 9120. Right? So if we send these two, then we'll get that the student's grade, and that one will store in this one. Okay, we will execute, and that's where we'll get that information. So if you remember, the method was getString, right? To get a character. So call.getString 1 means whatever we have in here. If we call this getString, then we'll save that one as a string, and finally we can print that one out. If you have a procedure with in and out parameter, right? So this is what you can write. Read student in and out, then these three. Then you already know, right? That you have 1, 2, 3. The first one is 101, second one is the unit of study, and the third one was the output, right? So that was the method signature. If you just go back and have a look, so first one was in, second one was in, and third one was out, right? So that's what is written in here. First one is set int 101, set string, and the third one is the character type. Then execute and get from the third one. Hopefully making sense. In Python, we'll use cursor.callProc, call the procedure. Okay, and the output parameter will be available in the result set. Okay. So if we have a procedure which returns with a return value, okay, so that's what you can do, passing these two parameters, 101 and this unit of study code, and fetch one will give you only one output. With in and out parameter, you can have more than one, right? So 101, comp 9120, everything is same. Now you can see, but since this one will be an in and out parameter, we will get the output there as well. Hopefully things are making some sense. So this is what, let's say I am trying to do. Let's say this is my normal procedure. Okay. So this is the normal procedure that I have a prepared statement, insert into transcript. These are the values that I want to insert. Then update the US offering using these values that I have. I want to convert this one into a stored procedure. How will we do that? So first we'll create, let's say, an enrolled student. So here you can see that first I'm inserting into transcript table. Based on that, I am updating the US offering enrollment +1. Right? So these are the two SQL queries that I need to run actually. So that is what I'm doing in here. So create or replace function enroll student within bracket all the parameters that we want to send. In begin, we can have insert, we can have update, right? So these are the procedures that we have. How do I call? From the Java or Python that we have, okay. From there, if you are using Java, you will use callable statement, prepare call this enroll student function that we have, and the 4 parameter we will send. Okay. So these are the 4 parameters that we will send, and it will return the output to us if we run execute update. I have created one. Hopefully that one will work. This one. So the method that I have created there was list student, right? So that is the one that we have created. So now I am calling this list student, okay, from that DBMS system where we have created that one. This list student I am calling, so this one will return all the student information. So if I run this one, so now you can see that yes, it gives me the result back. So this is from the stored procedure that I have, which is list student. So I'm calling list student stored, list student stored. Their only difference is that instead of prepared statement, now I am calling callable statement, right? And from that callable statement, I can call the stored procedures, and the rest of the part is same. So the rest of the part is getting all the result set and then printing out the result. So if I make some changes in here, that would be reflected there as well. So let's say in here, I'm simply showing one student data. I'm replacing, so that's why it's not giving me any error message. Create or replace. If I have this one will be replaced, so this one will replace. So if I run, oh, that should not be SID. That one is STUDID. Yep. So now we can see only one student, which is 101 from there, right? Because in lead student, I now have changed that query. So this is the benefit now we have, right? So if I give this method name to someone, they simply need to call that method. They don't need to know what is my table structure. But previously I needed to write that query by myself. So someone needs to know that one. So they need to know the attribute name, the table name, everything they need to know to write the query. In here, you can see no table name, no attribute name has been used in there. Okay, so that's it for today. This is what we have learned. Hopefully you will be able to do all of these things for assignment 2. Again, if you have joined late, everything that we have covered today will not be in your exam or quiz. This is only for your second assignment. Okay, so in the second assignment, we will provide you all the forms and everything, so you don't have to design those as well. Only thing that we have learned today is how to connect with the database, how to get the data from database, only those sort of things that you have to do. Okay. That's it for today. If you want to have a refresher on Java or Python, there are some links here that you can go through to have some understanding. Next week is semester break. Remember that. Don't join the session next week. Okay, so there is a semester break. Enjoy the break. The week after, we will learn about transaction. Any question? One question I can see, do we only have one out parameter or can we have multiple? If you are using return type, then only one, but if you're using in and out, there we can have multiple, as far as I can remember. But in the tutorial session, you will have practice on all of this. Okay. Yep, someone is wondering when can they get the mark of quiz 1. Like I said, after the semester break, okay, when you return, hopefully your marks will be there. Okay. During this break, we'll try to finish the marking. So in week 8, we will release that one. Okay, thank you everyone. Take 10-minute break, then join your tutorial session if you have one, and try to do all these things. Enjoy the break. See you after the break.